First story. My girlfriend of 7 years cheated on me. There were two instances, and the second instance was my last straw. First instance, I caught her texting one of her teammates until 3 in the morning. So before I had some suspicion something was up, she has been drained from work but then became really interested in her phone. Okay, now back to the teammate she was texting until 3 in the morning. We lived together for 4 years. I was sleeping next to her while she was texting this teammate until 3 in the morning. I kept hearing her phone go off. So where I went wrong, and I take full responsibility, I waited until she went to sleep and went through her phone and found the messages with her and her teammate. The conversation to me seemed flirtatious from her side of the conversation, and here's the kicker: she was basically talking crap about me to her teammate. I addressed her, and she told me she was just trying to get to know her teammate, and how those weren't her intentions. So I gave her the benefit of the doubt and was willing to move past the situation, but we came up with boundaries. Second instance, fast forward to 7 months after the first instance. The month after our 7-year anniversary, I shall add. She has been going through some things which I understood, and we were also dealing with my family drama in our relationship, which I feel like is an important factor in what she did. So she had become really distant and cold with me. I would try to be affectionate, and she just wasn't having it due to what she was dealing with, is what she told me. But there was this one friend, she told me she was constantly texting, which made me raise an eyebrow because again she was always on her phone and up when I went to sleep. She also spent a lot of time home alone because I work. Well, something in my gut told me something was up. So I looked on her Tumblr page from my Tumblr. Mind you, I was taking a break from Tumblr, which she knew of, but she didn't know I was looking at her Tumblr. And I found her liking this one girl pictures and quoting things the girl reposted. The girl would also reblog my ex-girlfriend pictures, and then the girl made a comment on my ex-girlfriend picture that made me raise an eyebrow. Well, the girl posted a picture of herself, and guess who commented on it? My ex-girlfriend. So then, me being me, I looked on her Pinterest and she created a Pinterest board for that girl. And that's when I addressed my ex-girlfriend. At first she tried to deny it and say the girl from Tumblr was a friend, but then she confessed she was talking to the girl for 3 months, and she liked how the girl gave her attention and validated her. Yet she wasn't allowing me to do these things because she was pushing me away. And here's the kicker: she called the girl when she really needed help mentally than calling me. She was texting this girl while I was right next to her and talking to her when I was at work. She was gaslighting me, manipulating me, because I asked her multiple times if something was up, and she would tell me no, how she barely talked to PPL. And when she was on her phone, it was because she was writing. Sorry for this long post, just had to give y'all the full information. I'm looking for any advice. I'm really hurt by it, have a lot of anger and sadness. This was 7 years of my life. I thought I found my future partner. IDK if I can forgive her for it. She's open for couples therapy, but IDK if I will ever get over it or look at her the same, because I never expected her to do something like that to me. Forgot to mention we're queer and both females. Also, please don't call her any names, thank you. Second story. Noun, physical affair that wife stopped herself. OP posted to the other subreddit. I didn't know they were so negative. I guess there's always that on Reddit, two sides of the same coin. I, 34M, found out my wife, 35F, had what would be classified as an affair. But I find myself not quite being able to pinpoint everything because while so much of it is the typical story you'd read about, there are a few small details that my brain can't grapple with. We've been together for a decade and recently moved to a new city where we don't know anybody, and so we're getting our lives set up. Prior to that, we lived somewhere far too rural, and for 2 years, I don't think she had any friends or really much human contact. That didn't do too well for her mental state. Part of that involves gym memberships, where after a few months, my wife had a new friend circle. This isn't new, she is fantastic at making friends. Also not new or bothersome, there is always some light flirting, I do it too. I only point this out because many Reddit subs, don't know here, are rather rigid. Nothing of these friends is hidden from me, and she tells me plenty of stories about them, and in general, all of that too is normal. One dude kind of stands out and I take slight notice of it, but not super conscious about it. Then about a week ago she started being just a little different, nothing too much. Half a week she was gone too long for 2 nights in a row, and I ask her about it, just checking up to make sure everything is okay. Just work stress was the response, which too has happened in the past from when we lived too rural. Okay, we talk a bit and the next day she seems a bit better, but this bell was going off on my head, so I looked at her texts, and of course there they are with the dude from earlier. It escalated very quickly from normal to slightly fairly sexual. No pictures, no hard sexting, things like imagining a person nude, minor hints of touching yourself to the thought of the other, and then oddly enough, it ends just as quick when a kind of I feel like I came into this gym and ruined any chance of having a good training partner. We shouldn't be doing this, etc. And both agree to it. I confront her about it, and that colors the above story a bit, but is basically the gist. The last few nights she had felt sick because she knew what she was doing was wrong, and so she put an end to it. I can 100% fine. 99.9999%. Nothing physical besides her slapping his ass at the gym happened. There is only slight trickle of things that come out. I asked point blank about sex when I found out and got a repulsed no. Took a bit to the confession of masturbation, which kind of contradicts the repulsed look, but to her it's because that line would never be crossed. Nothing physical in her mind also didn't include butt slaps, her to him, and that doesn't really bother me. We've talked pretty much constantly since then, and the normal things you'd expect to happen. No going to that gym, no contact with that dude. She needs to write herself on why anything got to where it did and how it will never happen again. How does she ever regain my trust and a few others? Which leads me to here and now. A confused state where it feels like she got carried away, as dumb as that sound and self-fixed. But then I am here with broken trust and unable to look at the situation as a whole. Part of that is I need time, as would anyone, but part of it is, well, it is so typical, my brain says, but just untypical enough that I can't get past there onto any other processing, so I type this out here, half for sanity and half for other views. Her perspective and small updates that weren't an OP. This is not cope. This isn't not justifying. This is just people are people and people have emotions. She is in a weird state still of shock and doesn't seem to be able to process what is going on. When this happens, she focuses on tangible things and thus is mourning the loss of her first friend group in 3 years and the loss of an amazing gym environment. I both hate and understand this. She never disagreed to stop contact with the dude. She fully gets that and why it is necessary. That said, there is still feeling they're not in a romantic or I got caught sense, but that something is being taken away. My role in this, as she puts it, because things don't happen in isolation. And after long self-reflection for a few days, I do truly see, is that I stopped being who I am supposed to be and was much more in the provider roommate, but we love and fuck role. This does not justify anything on her part and never can. But around COVID times, at least that is it in my mind. Where it is in hers I don't know yet. I lost myself and is something I am going to start going to therapy for. It is not and was not enough just to be there, but I need to, for both of us. Never stop dating and, for me, be me and be who I was when we started dating, and what I lost somewhere around 2020. The above I need to do regardless if I am to be the man I see myself as. I think, I don't know, I'm doing it for me, us, not her. She is worried I can't do that. That maybe I'm better for a few months and then slide back and we fail. I see that as a possibility. I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable though, and sadly I don't think it possible to convince otherwise and can only show it. I too After seeing how much that hurt her, don't know if it's even possible for us to move on with her having that 4-year-long burn and me this bomb. It scares me to say that, but nothing in life is certain, so I think the pluged sut has to happen if it's really wanted. Side note, when the fuck does this nausea and adrenaline dumping stop? I was sick last week. In between this and that, I'm down 7 pounds that I really don't want to lose. Third story. My wife, 38F, was emotionally unfaithful during the worst phase of my life. Should I, 35M, forgive her? I discovered that my wife had been exchanging messages with another man. When I confronted her, she admitted it but assured me that nothing physical happened. She told me that the day after their last contact, she felt so guilty about what she had done that she asked him to cut off all contact and scheduled an appointment with a psychologist to understand what was going on with her. For more context, we've been together for 15 years, 8 years dating and 7 years married. We have a 3-year-old child. We've always been faithful and deeply in love. Our love has always been very strong. When our son was 8 months old, I had an accident that left me quadriplegic. I could only move my arms a little, I couldn't feel my body, and I needed help with everything, from bathing to eating. I wore diapers. I spent some time in the hospital and then moved to my parents' house, so as not to overburden her since she was taking care of our child alone. Fortunately, I've recovered a lot. I still use a wheelchair, but I've regained sensation. My upper limbs are almost fully functional, and I can take care of myself independently. I can drive and even regain sexual activity. This year, I moved back home, and it was one of the best moments since the accident. In December, she attended a company party and met a guy. Later, through social media, I noticed he wanted more than just a work relationship. I told her, and she joked about it. She's very attractive, and this happens frequently, but for some reason, this guy made me uncomfortable. About a month and a half ago, by chance, I found out they were exchanging messages. It started with likes and reactions on Instagram, and over the last month, their conversations escalated to daily chats. She says it was just harmless flirting, but at one point, she mentioned being unhappy in our marriage and considering being with him. When I confronted her, she admitted it and said she had doubts about continuing in this marriage. This devastated me. I threatened to leave, and she broke down, crying like I've never seen before. Realizing she might lose me made her realize that she wants to be with me. She begged for forgiveness with all her might, constantly crying out of remorse and regret, saying she doesn't recognize herself in what she did. Every day, she does her best to make things right and keeps telling me she loves me. I believe in her honesty and think I can trust her again, but it's very hard to forgive, even if nothing physical happened. I've always treated her like a queen, and she acknowledges and reinforces that I didn't deserve this. My self-esteem was already very affected. She knew this, and in the worst moment of my life, she had this selfish attitude. I feel less than human. I feel inferior to that man and now to all other men. Since I found out, I've needed medication to sleep. It's very hard to accept that she was messaging someone else by my side, in our home. It's painful to think that another man was boasting to his friends about having a married, lonely woman with a child falling for him. I feel deeply humiliated, full of rage and fury. She had already talked to 2 friends about her doubts in the marriage, and with that guy too. We've always been open about everything, and it hurts that she hid this and shared something so intimate and important with others. We both started therapy, and we're doing couples therapy as well. She says she misses my smile, my joy, my sense of humor, and that those messages brightened her day. We've had some good days where I feel I can forgive her. We watch movies together and even got intimate again. But then, there are days when I explode in anger, can't handle it, and she ends up leaving home for a few days until I calm down. I feel very unstable and deeply depressed, just like when I was in intensive care. She has held me many times, crying with regret, swearing that nothing like this has ever happened before and promising that it will never happen again. She says all she wants is to be married to me, the man she loves, to keep our family together, see our child grow up, and help me recover. Do you think this is a situation worth the effort to forgive? Is it worth trying to rebuild trust in our relationship after this? Fourth story. Completely devastated and desperately need advice opinions. I just found out my husband cheated on me. We've been together for almost 10 years, married for 6, and we have a 2-year-old child and another on the way. I'm pregnant. He has been cheating on me for the past 4 months and was extremely good at hiding it. He'd go to her place during his work hours, didn't have her on social media, only communicated through an encrypted messenger chat, etc. It only ended last week when I saw a message that he forgot to delete. I called the girl and she told me everything. I immediately confronted him and he first tried to deny it. Then when he saw I knew and there was no way of denying it, he admitted. In addition to having sex with her multiple times a week, he confessed that he also took her out to lunch at a restaurant 3 times, and went on walks with her occasionally. So it wasn't just strictly sex either. He says he didn't love her but obviously had some feelings for her. If this has been going on for 4 months, I made him call her that same evening and tell her on speaker that it's over, and he did. He hasn't had any contact with her since, which is now 9 days ago. He has been apologizing ever since and says he is disgusted with himself and will do anything needed to save this relationship if I chose to give him another chance. He explained how he lost attraction for me with me not taking care of myself, dressing nicely, recovering from postpartum body, etc. And he felt like life was getting boring, and he never had time for anything other than work and family. To be fair, I did let myself go a bit while he has been staying very fit. He was actually telling me how he wasn't sure anymore that he wanted a second child. We always agreed on 2, but it just so happened that I got pregnant at that same time. He said he felt trapped, depressed, angry when I told him. He told me that was the tipping point for him, and that's when he invited this other girl to go out to lunch with him, and then it went on from there. He did also cheat on me 10 years ago in the first 2 months of our relationship. We just started dating, and he slept with 2 other girls during those first 2 months, then ended it all, and I found out 6 months later. I forgave him because he explained how at the time he didn't think we would turn out so serious, and he stopped everything after those first 2 months once our relationship started developing. Between then and now, I do believe he has been faithful over the past 10 years. In general, he has been a great spouse and also a great dad. He has been very present with us. He doesn't drink, smoke, do drugs, watch sports, play video games, go out with friends, etc. He is an entrepreneur who has always been a hard worker, and over the last 10 years, he has treated me very well and has always put me first. After I found out about this most recent cheating, he seemed genuinely remorseful. He has signed himself up for therapy. I sent him a long list of conditions he has to meet, including sharing his phone location, login to social media accounts, and access to his work surveillance system so I can check on him at any time, etc. And he has agreed to everything and implemented it so far. He wants to do individual counseling for himself first to figure out on a deep level how he was capable of doing this to me, and then after we will begin couples counseling. He also said he is happy to create some sort of legal contract document, saying that if he ever did this again, everything he owns, money and possessions would be transferred to our children and he can be left with nothing, as a way of showing me he is certain. I told him I need time to think about what I want to do, and I haven't made my decision yet. I am completely devastated and broken and don't know what to do. I go from raging inside and hating him, to wanting to stay with him. On one end, I feel like I can never respect myself if I stay and wonder how I would ever trust him, and whether this would happen again in 5, 10, 15 years from now and I'd just waste my life trying to give him another chance. But at the same time he is my best friend, father of my children. And we have had such a great life together so far and a great 10 years, other than the rough start in the beginning. I've been reading success stories which make me hopeful, and then many other unsuccessful stories which make me wonder if any of this is worth it. If anyone can share some advice, I would really appreciate it.